Way back in episode 50 of Rank and Review, I did an episode about Bigfoot with my good friend Brendan Cook. It's worth revisiting. I think it's a high quality episode. And I said then that I am fascinated with Bigfoot. I've always been fascinated with Bigfoot. But I don't believe in Bigfoot. I am not a believer. I'm a want-to-be believer. Like a television show from my childhood, the X-Files. You know, I want to believe. I would love to be wrong about Bigfoot. But it seems like a lot of other things need to fall into place for Bigfoot to exist. Like, in order for a population of large mammal, ape creatures to live in even the remotest regions of Canada or Russia or wherever and not be encountered by us in any conclusive physical way ever is tough. And to then otherwise go, well, they only get seen when they want to be seen, or they travel by portals, or they're supernatural, or that's kicking down a whole other set of doors. You know, that's when you're not... There's asking me if I believe in Bigfoot, and then there's asking me if I believe in wholesale the supernatural. I want to believe in Bigfoot. I just don't believe in the supernatural. But I love playing in that sort of fun, imaginary arena. I like a world where supernatural things exist. I kind of want a world where Bigfoot exists. I think that's part of my love of cinema and escapist media of all sorts, you know, is like, who wouldn't love to call a cab and have like some Fozzie Bear Muppet be your cab driver? And wouldn't that be a great conversation to have on your way to wherever you're going instead of the regular chatter? I want the world to be more than it seems to be or that it presents to be. And that's part of the escapist nature of, you know, cinema, or in the case of what I would like to start talking about here, Max Brooks' novel Devolution. And this book definitely believes in Bigfoot in that it treats it like a very serious document. We have diary entries from a survivor of a small community that was sieged by Bigfoot creatures, Sasquatches, whatever you want to call them, after a natural disaster takes place that ends up moving a large portion of the animals out of their regular terrain, and some of them starving, some of them, you know, desperate. It's sort of a collision, a classic collision of man versus nature from the author of World War Z. I've told the story before. I'm going to tell it again because it's worth telling. A dear friend of mine, friend of the show, she's been on a couple of episodes, Dorian. She was at a Comic-Con and she met Max Brooks, and she bought her own copy of World War Z, and he asked her where she got the book or how she'd heard about the book. She'd mentioned that she'd babysat for me and that I'd recommended she read the book and that she had, la la la. The man gave her a poster and signed it and asked her to give it to me, and Dorian, being the sweetheart that she is, delivered. So ever since that happened, I've decided I'm absolutely a supporter of Max Brooks. I mean, I'd read his Zombie Survival Guide and World War Z because of who I am. But would I have continued forward with his books if they weren't zombie related, if not for that little story? I think this Bigfoot book might have caught my eye anyway, but right now I just consider myself a supporter of all things Max Brooks. He just seems like a cool guy, and it was easy to paint this picture of my head back when I was first reading his graphic novels and World War Z. You know, this is the son of Mel Brooks. He's got to be this grown-up, you know, spoiled Hollywood kid who gets to do whatever he wants, and it's going to be successful because of just the charmed position that he found himself in. And so he gets to write about zombies, and hooray. But this is a whole side project to a very fascinating life that this man is living, and he seems to genuinely be warm and respectful and appreciative of his fans. So I have a lot of respect. I say all this, and I haven't met the man. But let's get into Devolution. From the dust jacket of my hardcover edition of Devolution, the account of the Rainier Sasquatch Massacre? As the ash and chaos from Mount Rainier's eruption swirled and finally settled, the story of the Greenleaf Massacre has passed unnoticed, unexamined, until now. The journals of resident Kate Hollands, recovered from the town's bloody wreckage, capture a tale too harrowing and too earth-shattering in its implications to be forgotten. In these pages, Max Brooks brings Kate's extraordinary account to light for the first time, faithfully reproducing her words alongside his own extensive investigations into the massacre and the legendary beasts behind it. Kate's is a tale of unexpected strength and resilience, of humanity's defiance in the face of a terrible predator's gaze, and inevitably, of savagery and death. Yet it's also more than that, because if what Kate Holland saw in those days is real, then we must accept the impossible. We must accept that the creature known as Bigfoot walks among us, and that it is a beast of terrible strength and ferocity. Part survival narrative, part bloody horror tale, part scientific journey into the boundaries between truth and fiction, this is a Bigfoot story only as Max Brooks could chronicle it, and like none you've ever read before. The book is told as like an investigative journalistic sort of approach of an actual natural disaster. Mount Rainier erupted, and the fallout caused a lot of major arteries to be shut down, covered in dirt and sort of lava and destructive debris that was very hot and hard and muddy to get through, and was slowly freezing into a shell of concrete, or sort of solidifying, not freezing. And, evacuations, trying to, get people who are trapped, find people who are missing, all sorts of things to deal with, as any major catastrophe, would be. And this tiny, relatively new community that's very eco-friendly, very modern, and sort of an idea of like the eco-friendly community of the future has settled deep in the woods and is kind of forgotten about in the midst of the chaos. They are completely cut off. We know the story of what's happened there because after the ruin of the areas found, all the burnt out cabins, a journal from this woman, Kate Holland, is found. And we follow her from her first moving in to the community, getting to know her neighbors, a lot of whom are kind of unpleasant portraits of very snooty, intellectually rich, loving the smell of their own farts sort of people that are communing with nature, but they're sort of wealthy snobs, and their privilege is very evident, and some of them are there for the right reasons, some of them are there for the wrong reasons, but and she's got a troubled relationship with her boyfriend who's had to deal with a lot of personal failures and is clearly depressed and kind of not really drag kicking and streaming, but he just doesn't have any personality or ability or animus left in him, and as a result she feels lonely here, and she bonds with very few of her neighbors, at least initially. But once they realize they're cut off, the novel becomes sort of a kind of condemnation of a lot of these people. Their survival ability is very, very minimal. They're very lucky for the handful of people that are capable, that live there. And most are. This one woman who's sort of a veteran of other catastrophes and has a really heavy past that the book slowly reveals to us. She knows, she sniffs the catastrophe in the air. She doesn't know that Bigfoot's coming, but she knows that they may be cut off for longer than they realize, and that their little perfect, easy living utopia dries up real quick when, the delivery vans with supplies don't, come in regularly. And then they start noticing that the animals passing through are impossibly skinny and fragile and desperate, and, they're seeing signs that, like, some sort of natural apocalypse has happened in the ecosystem, and it's definitely affected the animals' behavior. And they soon find out that the animals include Sasquatch. these Bigfoot come across this little community of people completely cut off, and in their desperate, on the move, sort of pack hunting need for survival, they see it as a potential food source. And they first sort of try and stay in the area and sniff it out and see how real this is. And you can sort of feel things escalating. And all of this is covered in the diary. We also have Max Brooks, the author, interviewing, some of the people who are dealing with the actual fallout of the Rainier eruption, so like why they didn't get to the people right away, and different people studying about Sasquatches and stuff like that, why maybe help to make the case of why this is a more credible thing than maybe it sounds. He's really trying to ground the narrative in the real world, and that what sort of makes it really pleasant. If I have a complaint, I guess it's that, like, as far as the action and the meat and potatoes of the visceral confrontation and the horror, it's sort of a slow burn to get to that. But a lot of my favorite horror novels, I've noticed, are that way. Even, say, Stephen King's most notorious novel, Pet Sematary, is really the last third of the book is where everything bad really fully happens. But like that book, this movie, right away that it's going to lead to a tragedy, and you sort of feel all these dominoes being set and slowly starting to fall. And when the shit hits the fan, it is quite the story. It is quite horrifying. This is not Harry and the Hendersons' Bigfoot. These are terrifying, aggressive animals, and they're smart, but not necessarily smarter than us. And if these people can, get together, maybe they can stick it out. So it's a fascinating, quick read. And there's also actually an audiobook version of it that's full of really interesting actors. And Jeff Daniels and Nathan Fillion and Judy Greer are all supplying voices in it. He also did similar with World War Z. He's a really interesting audio version of that. So, if you want to have that audio experience, that's another way to enjoy the book. But I think it's great time. I think it's fun. I don't think it didn't necessarily make me stay up at night, but it definitely had some really good wowzers, shocking, sort of violent moments, and it's kind of refreshingly grisly in its approach to Bigfoot. It's so much of the Bigfoot fiction that I've read, they're kind of a little cuddlier, Not in this book. This book wants to be vicious. I guess the movie rights for the book have been optioned, so my guess is that we're going to be seeing a film version of it in the next few years, and I can't wait. I can't wait. But I can't recommend the book enough. It's a ton of fun. Also, interstitially, with like all of the different chapters and the interview segments and the diary entries, there's great little excerpts from other books and studies and scientific sort of historic interest items having to do with Sasquatch. Little bite-sized things, and all of them I found quite fascinating. At first, Bowman could see nobody, nor did he receive an answer to his call. Stepping forward, he again shouted, and as he did, so his eye fell on the body of his friend, stretched beside the trunk of a great fallen spruce. Rushing towards it, horrified, the trapper found the body was still warm, but that the neck was broken, while there were 4 great fang marks in his throat. The footprints of the unknown beast creature, printed deep in the soft soil, told the whole story. The unfortunate man, having finished his packing, had sat down on the spruce log with his face to the fire and his back to the dense woods to wait for his companion. While thus waiting, this monstrous assailant, which must have been lurking nearby in the woods, waiting for a chance to catch one of the adventurers unprepared, came silently up from behind, walking with long, noiseless steps, and seemingly still on 2 legs. Evidently unheard, it reached the man and broke his neck by wrenching his head back with his forepaws, while it buried its teeth in his throat. It had not eaten the body, but apparently had romped and gamboled around in an uncouth, ferocious glee, occasionally rolling over and over it, and then had fled back into the soundless depths of the woods. President Theodore Roosevelt, the wilderness hunter.